3-Eye Atlas is gone. After a whirlwind trip through the inner solar system, our latest interstellar visitor is now returning to the empty void from whence it came. Fortunately, all of our most powerful telescopes and scanning instruments were able to get one last good look at the object on its way out. That means we know more about 3-Eye Atlas than any other interstellar object discovered so far, and that means we can finally start to draw some conclusions about what this thing actually is or isn't. In December 2025, the planet Earth had its closest encounter with 3-Eye Atlas, giving us a clear view of the object for the first time in months. For most of October and November, 3-Eye Atlas had been hidden from sight behind the glare of the sun, and during that time, we know that heat and radiation from the sun had been changing 3-Eye Atlas in a very profound way. So, we were expecting to see a very different object, and that's exactly what was found. Here is an image of 3-Eye Atlas taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. It's a tiny, bright dot surrounded by a massive haze of gas and dust that we call the coma. This is typical for a comet, although typically we expect to see a big, long tail extending from that coma, but 3-Eye Atlas is far from typical. To get a better look at what 3-Eye Atlas is actually up to, we need to see these pictures in a different light. Here is the same Hubble telescope image processed through something called a rotational gradient filter. It basically removes anything circular from the picture and leaves behind only the distinct jets of gas that are pouring out from the surface of 3-Eye Atlas. Now, if this looks weird, that's because it is. On the left side of the image, we can finally see the tail of 3-Eye Atlas. The shape is pretty typical for a comet, but the direction is not. This tail is pointing towards the sun. For almost the entire time that we've been observing 3-Eye Atlas, the object has been showing evidence of a sun-facing tail, also called an antitail, because in every other known comet, the tail always trails away from the sun. This happens because the solar wind tends to blow back all of the dust and gas from the coma. Now, there's not actually wind in space, but there is a constant stream of charged particles and radiation that gets pushed out from the surface of the sun, and that carries with it enough energy to have the same effect as wind on any matter in the solar system that's not held down by a strong force of gravity. We would have expected that the closer 3-Eye Atlas got to the sun, the smaller the antitail would become, as it experienced more pressure from the solar wind. But this is not the case. What we are seeing is actually a much bigger jet of gas and dust on the sun-facing side, which means that there has to be a very large amount of energy inside 3-Eye Atlas that's pushing this stuff out and overpowering the energy of the sun. And then on the opposite side of 3-Eye Atlas, to the right of the image, there's something almost even more interesting. This little trio of jets. The biggest one is where the typical comet tail should be. But then there are two similar side tails, and the three of them together make up this almost perfect triangular shape. It's stuff like this that makes people think we might be looking at something that is alien in origin, and it is pretty weird, but we shouldn't draw too many conclusions from just one observation. These big jets of gas and dust shooting out from 3-Eye Atlas provide us with a good look at what is inside of 3-Eye Atlas, and that's going to tell us a lot about what this thing really is. The interstellar object back in the summer of 2025, it was already producing a coma that was full of some really weird stuff. Mostly carbon dioxide, which is not what you would expect to see from a comet, or at least a comet from our own solar system. You see, all of the comets we have around here are almost entirely made of water ice. They do contain some frozen CO2, but the amount is very small compared to the water content. 3-Eye Atlas flipped that. It was outgassing a lot of CO2 with only a small amount of water, until it met the sun and everything changed. Using radio-based instruments like the Meerkat telescope in South Africa, astronomers are able to penetrate through the thick coma of gas and dust to start looking at the composition of those jets shooting out from 3-Eye Atlas. And this is where they found the water. Lots of it. So now we know that beneath the surface, 3-Eye Atlas is full of water, and once the object was heated enough by the sun, that water started pouring out at an incredible rate. This actually gives us a really big clue about how the object might have been created and what makes it behave so strangely. So here is a new leading theory. We know that 3I Atlas is very old, older than the Earth, older than the Sun, and it comes from a place in our galaxy that is very far away. So this object has spent a very long time drifting through the emptiness of interstellar space, and in that time, it's probably never come as close to a star as it just did with our Sun. Now, we can't track 3I Atlas all the way back to its point of origin. All we know is that it came from the direction of the galactic core, but we can say that for at least 10 million years, the object has not come within 1 light year of any star. So in theory, there's been nothing that would have been able to disturb the object from its original state. Except space is not entirely empty. It's full of an invisible force called galactic cosmic rays, which is basically the fallout from dying stars that explode in massive supernovas that blast powerful radiation out through interstellar space. And this is what 3I Atlas has been soaking in for billions of years. Those cosmic rays would attack the surface of the object, breaking down chemical bonds and converting molecules like water and carbon into carbon dioxide, essentially baking a thick radiation crust all around the outside that would make the object appear much different from how it was to begin with. So following this theory, 3I Atlas could have begun its life as a very typical water-ice comet in a solar system just like ours. Then one day it flew too close to a gas giant and got ejected by gravity out into deep space, where it slowly developed this mutated crust shaped by cosmic radiation. And then, after billions of years alone, it finally started getting close to a star, our Sun, and the heat from the Sun started breaking down that crust and releasing all of this weird cosmic material that totally baffled every scientist on Earth. Until 3I Atlas finally got hot enough that the crust started to break off, and that long dormant icy interior burst out in dramatic fashion, with water only being able to flow through holes in the crust and creating these weird jets that blast out in odd directions. So in simple terms, this theory states that 3I Atlas isn't a weird comet, it's a normal comet stuck inside a weird shell of cosmic stuff that we've never seen before. And that's what made everyone freak out. And if this isn't enough to convince you that it's not aliens, here are the people whose entire job it is to look for aliens saying that it's not aliens. The SETI Institute is a non-profit research organization founded in 1984 dedicated to exploring the origins of life in the universe and the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. They have spent the last month using a wide variety of instruments and telescopes from all over the world to observe 3I Atlas in every way imaginable. Infrared light, ultraviolet light, radio waves, microwaves, desperately looking for any sign of something they would classify as a technosignature, which is basically the indication of intelligent life. And sorry to say, they didn't find anything. The methods used to scan 3I Atlas would have been able to detect any kind of transmitter or communication device up to 10 times weaker than a cell phone, so if this was an alien probe calling home, we would have heard them. We did not. At least that's what the people in charge are telling us right now. There is this organization called the Black Vault. It's basically an online archive of US government documents. They submitted a Freedom of Information request to the CIA for the release of any communications involving 3I Atlas, and they ended up getting a very strange response. Instead of just saying, no, we don't have anything on that topic, the CIA told Black Vault, we can neither confirm nor deny the existence or non-existence of such records, which is a cryptic response that's typically used by the government as a self-defense tactic so they can claim they never lied about anything. The CIA also writes the fact of the existence or non-existence of such records is itself currently and properly classified. Which makes you wonder, if it is just a big chunk of ice in space, then what kind of information about it would possibly have to remain classified by the US government? The truth is, I don't know, and I don't imagine we ever will, but I can say for sure that 3I Atlas will not be the last interstellar object we get into this debate over. With new observation technology like the Vera Rubin telescope, which can record a high-resolution image of the entire night sky in just a couple of days, we are on the verge of a new era where the hidden secrets of our solar system are finally revealed. So far, we've managed to spot 3 interstellar objects in the past 10 years. That tells us that these things are not uncommon. We've just not been very good at seeing them. But getting better at observing interstellar objects will open up a whole new realm of science. By studying a lot of these things, we can start to figure out what is normal and what's actually weird. Because the really weird stuff is still out there, just waiting to be found.